चक्षुमृतं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतात्मकमलं चक्षुमृतं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागजातं सहगण रघुनाथन्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिविकास स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नाम्ने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे वागीशा यस्य वदने लक्ष्मीर्यस्य च वक्षसि यस्यास्ति हृदये संवित्तं नृसिंहम् अहं भजे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So, thank you all for joining us after a long time. It's been about 3 weeks. I think this is the fourth week now. So, it's almost been a month basically. So, thank you. We had a pretty successful Prabhupada marathon. We went we went all out, and Guru Maharaj expressed to us openly that he's very pleased with our book scores. So, I think our life is not completely useless. So, we could go on continuing from Dushtaman, verse number 17. And I think I'll be doing the class tomorrow too, Thursday class tomorrow. And we could do verse number 18 and 19 tomorrow. So this is very important verse. Radha dasye rai chadi boga ahi, pratishtha nahi kirtana gaurav. Radha nitya jan taha chadi man, kenava nirjana bhajana kaitav. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying. Now let's look at the translation for this verse. Over here, he says this: ever engage yourself in the service of Sri Radha and keep aloof from the vicious snake of materialistic sense gratification. The glory of participating in the Lord's Kirtan is not meant to bolster anyone's ambitions for personal recognition. O mind, why then have you abandoned the identity of being Radha's eternal servant in favor of retiring to a solitary place to practice the cheating process of so-called bhajan? So this is classic, this is typical Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. That he pulls up and he's just literally opened a whole uh, can who I'll just mute everyone. What's going on here? Who's that? Oh yeah, please everyone mute yourself. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So there's a typical Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur statement where, with a small chink, right, is such a small sentence, Radha Dasi Rai, he opened up an entire unlimited universe. And we say that in this entire material world, everything that we are doing is actually supposed to be meant for Krishna's satisfaction, but we are doing it for our own satisfaction. And because we are doing all these things for our own satisfaction, we are experiencing so much material pain, so much material misery in this world because we miss the ultimate goal of life. Nate vidu swarthagatim hi Vishnum, durashaya hi bahirarthamanina, andaya thandarapakiyamana, sepi satantra murudhani baddha. We see that people do not understand Nate vidu swarthagatim hi Vishnu. They do not realize that the ultimate goal of life is to surrender to Lord Vishnu. They do not realize this point. And because they don't realize this simple point, Nati Vidu Swarthagatim Hi Vishnu, they do not know what their ultimate benefit is, what is Swarthagati. They do not understand the Swarthagati. Then they have bad hope. Durashaya He Bahirartamaninaha. They have bad hope that something of this material world will make them happy. That is their hope. That if they somehow or the other engage in some kind of sense gratification, some way, if they please their senses in a way that they think they've never pleased their senses before, or in a way that they're always trying to please their senses, they think that will give them ultimate happiness. But it doesn't. It's durashraya. It's durasha. It's bad hope. It's bad hope. Durashraya. That they're taking shelter of bad hope. Durashaya he bhairatamanina. And then what do they do to make things worse? Andayatande rupagiyamanas. They simply are blind, following the blind. They're blind people, and they have amongst them the biggest blind man. That's why Srila Prabhupada often quoted this verse, Swavidvara hoshta karai samshuta purushav pashuhu. That so many people they come together, and if you look at people in general, they're either like hogs, dogs, camels, or asses. So all the hogs, dogs, camels, and asses come together, and they vote the biggest hog, dog, camel, and ass as a leader. And they do not understand the goal of life. They do not understand Nati Vidu Swartakatim Hi Vishnu. They do not understand that the ultimate goal of life is to surrender to Vishnu. Therefore, manas, and then what ends up happening is they're bound up in this well of material existence. That's the unfortunate situation. They're bound up in this hell of material existence. This hellish pandemonium, like Srila Prabhupada said. Prabhupada had so many words for it. Hellish pandemonium. Then what else did Prabhupada say? Prabhupada said, hellish pandemonium, that's one thing. Another way Prabhupada described this material world. He says there's no fit place for a gentleman. And then Prabhupada said the phantasmagoria of material existence. Right? The phantasmagoria. We're thinking, oh, this material world is such a nice place. I can enjoy it like this, I can enjoy it like that. But no, ultimately it's a place full of misery. It's a terrible place, actually. If you examine this world, you'll find that it is dukhalayam shashvatam. We were reading this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where we were seeing Suta Goswami. He explains that this material world is an ocean of misery comprised of the tears of the fallen conditioned souls. That's such a heavy verse, right? I'm going to say it again. This material world is an ocean of misery comprised of the tears of the fallen conditioned souls. We have to let that sink in and understand the gravity of the situation, right? It's this, we are living in this material world. It's an ocean. And it's an ocean of what? Ocean of misery. And why is it so salty? Because it's made of the tears of the suffering souls in this material world. So it's a very terrible place to be in. And then we may make our own temporary arrangements to make ourselves very comfortable in this world. But until and unless we come to this point of understanding that this material world is not a nice place for us to live in, and that our entire life is meant to serve Krishna, it's meant to serve Vishnu, then we will never be able to go past this material conceptions that we are facing. Right? We are right now in the service of Maya. We are trying to serve Maya so nicely. Narottam Das Thakur in one bhajan, he says, my dear Lord, this the highway robbers called lust, greed, and anger have completely taken me a prisoner, and they have tied me up and bound me up. And I have very dutifully served them so many times. But in spite of all the service that I've done for them, they are such ungrateful masters that they simply exploit me more and more and more and more. You know, my spiritual master Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, he was in a particular place in America, and everywhere that he went, right, he would sing this bhajan, which I'm going to share with you. Okay, over here. Yeah, he would sing Bhajahure Mana Srinanda Nandana Abhaya Charanarvindere Dulabha Manava Janama Sasange Taroho E Bhava Sindhure. He says, oh mind, just worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, which makes one fearless. Having obtained this rare human birth, cross over this ocean of worldly existence to the association of saintly persons. Hmm? Sita Atapa Bata Barishana, Idina Jamani Jagire, Bifale Sevenu Kripana Durajana, Chapala Shukala Bhala Gire. And I would notice, like, when you have the good fortune of being around a pure devotee, you try to notice in observe every moment and every action, activity of theirs. And when he would especially sing this bhajan was being sung, Maharaj would have like a certain stern expression on it, a stern yet very compassionate expression on his face. I was wondering what's going on. Why is Maharaj? What's with this particular line? Because we probably sung this bhajan maybe 7 times when we were in this particular preaching tour with Maharaj in this particular place, right? And now you can look at this. Both in day and night, I remain sleepless, suffering the pains of the heat, cold, the wind, and the rain. And this is the point. For a fraction of flickering happiness, I have uselessly served wicked and miserly men, right? He would always make that look. And we'll go over the bhajan and explain, and then we'll drop back to where we were. Edana jobana putra parijana iti ki ache parati tire. Kamala dala jala jivana talamala bhajahu haripada tire. What assurance of real happiness is there in all of one's wealth, youthfulness, sons, and family members? This life is tottering like a drop of water on a lotus petal. Therefore, we should always serve and worship the divine lotus feet of Lord Hari. Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Vandana, Pada, Sevana, Dasire, Pujana, Sakijana, Atma, Nivedana, Govinda, Dashaya, Lashire. The desire and great longing of Govinda Das to engage himself in the 9 processes of bhakti, namely hearing the glories of Lord Hari, chanting those glories, constantly remembering him and offering prayers to him, serving the Lord's lotus feet, serving the Lord as a servant, worshipping him with flowers and incense and so forth, serving him as a friend, and completely offering the Lord's one very self. Right? So Prabhupada writes four purpose to this. I'm not going to go over this because I'd be giving a class on this bhajan instead of the bhajan that we're reading. But Maharaj would always quote, and but this line, right? Bifale Sevinu Kripana Durojana. When he was, I would think, what's going on? Why is Maharaj, constantly singing this bhajan to all these in the association or in the assembly of this place where this particular place that we were, let me see, is I think at least one person on this group was in these programs. Actually, no, maybe not. Actually, no, none of you were. But we were in a place where devotees were extremely wealthy. They're extremely wealthy, and they're living their life in such a way that, you know, can I, just they had everything material, right? That could be offered, and it actually it pained me when I went to their houses because I was seeing the way they were living and it was not the way a pure devotee lives. For example, on that altar they had Lord Shiva, and I had to chastise the person, and then he had like this huge, super huge, big house and all this, and it was clear that this person was he wanted to enjoy material life and also have a spiritual life at the same time. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I think the it just dropped out. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. But can everyone hear me still? It's good. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu,
Oh,
we can hear.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can hear
great.
you.
I'm sorry. I guess that's life on the farm. Sometimes the internet goes out. But he was making this very important point. He was making this point, and this person, he was clearly into enjoying both the material life and spiritual life. And and there's Maharaj was quoting this verse, "Bahujanma kariyo di Shravan Kirtan tabutana paikasha pade premadhan," that you may chant the holy names of the Supreme Lord for many many births, but if you go on committing the offenses, the offenses towards the holy name of Krishna, you will not attain the ultimate goal of chanting. And in the offenses, one of the offenses, Shrutepi nama mahatmya yaf priti rahito naraha aham mamadi paramo namni sopa paradakrit. Then to maintain material attachments, even understanding so many instructions on this matter. At this particular place, people read at least they make a show of reading the Bhagavatam a lot. If you read the Bhagavatam, where does it say that you could be a mixed devotee? Bhagavatam only preaches pure devotional service. But still, these people think, oh, I can be a pure devotee and also have my material desires. No, you can't. That's actually literally the opposite of everything, right? That's why um, Maharaj, in one of those classes, he said that he was with a devotee. I think those devotees came to visit him right there around them, around the same time while he was there. And the devotees came with their kid and they said, Maharaj, please bless my kid, you know. And Maharaj said, can I bless him to be a pure devotee? And then the parents thought about it for some time and said, Maharaj, no, please don't bless him to be a pure devotee, you know. Actually, and then Maharaj was saying, at least they were honest, right? Usually they say, yeah, yeah, bless him to be a pure devotee, but we don't want to train him in pure devotion service. But the parents were pretty straightforward. They said, please don't bless him to be a pure devotee. Yes, we want this life where we can chant a little Hare Krishna. We can, we'll follow the four regs as much as we can. We'll have a little karmic grains on the side, go to the movies with our family, watch a little TV. Definitely when cricket is on, we have to watch cricket. But in America now, we can also watch basketball. And, we'll also chant Hare Krishna. We'll definitely go for the sensual kirtan melas for sure and stuff like that. But we don't want pure devotional service, right? So they had this whole conception of Krishna consciousness without being a pure devotee. And Maharaj said, at least they were honest, but the unfortunate truth is that they're preparing themselves for repeated birth and death. They're preparing themselves for repeated birth and death. They're aiming for repeated birth and death. They're not aiming to be freed from the cycle of birth and death. They're aiming their entire life, they're trying to hone it in such a way that they're preparing for repeated birth and death. So if this is our mentality, how will we ever be happy? If we are performing kirtan, now we can see this verse that we are looking at today. Sorry, I had to give a whole background for this, but it's very much needed. It's very much needed. We have to hear these points again and again. Hmm? Over here, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying, uh, ever engage yourself in the service of Sri Radha and keep aloof from the vicious snake of materialistic sense gratification. That the whole point, everything we are doing actually in pure Krishna consciousness, everything we are doing. Why? Because how do we practice Krishna consciousness? What does Rupa Goswami say? He says, um, uh, Tishtan Rajeta Danuragi Jananugami Kalam Nayada Kilamithyupadesha Saram, right? Rupa Goswami says that. Let me see. Okay, sorry. Okay. So, oops. Uh, I didn't pull up the right verse. Sorry about that. But yeah, he says, Tishtan Rajetana Ragijnanugami Kalam Naida Kilamityupadesha Saram. And he says, what is the essence of all advice? Sannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtananu Smrityo Kramena Rasana Manasini Yojya Tishtan Rajetana Ragijnanugami Kalam Naida Kilamityupadesha Saram. Right? This is the one. Yeah. Verse number 8. I just quoted this verse. But the translation is as follows. He says, okay, what is the essence of all advice? The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting, remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Vraja, Goloka Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of the devotees. This is the point. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. Right? Tishtan Rajeda Danuragi Jananugami Kalam Naida Kilamityupadesha Saram. Oops, where did the verse go? Verse number 8 should be here. I just said it. Okay, this is it. Tishtan Vrajidara Ragi Jananugami Kalam Naida Kilomityopadesha Saram. There's the point though, especially in regard to the verse that we're reading right now. Tishtan Vrajidara Ragi Jananugami. We have to follow in the footsteps of a person who is the resident of Raja. Who's the resident of Raja. If we follow in their footsteps, then we can have Radha Dasyam. That is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur speaking about over here. Yeah. Radhadasi Rai, Chadi Bogai. We must learn to be a servant of Srimati Radharani, following in the footsteps of the previous Goswamis of Vrindavan. Right? That's why, we chant, what's that? Tyaktva Turnamashesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sada Tuchavat. Bhutva Dina Ganesha Ko Karanaya Kopina Kantashtato. Gopi Bhavara Samritabdi Lahari, Kalola Magno Muhur, Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghu Yugo, Sri Jiva Gopalako. Let's see if I can pull this up on KK songs. Always better. Okay, yeah. So we see what did the Goswamis of Vrindavan do? We just quoted this verse. This is the point. Gopi Bhavara Samritabdi Lahari, Kalola Magno Muhur. Right? And we see the translation over here is offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who kicked off all association of aristocracy as insignificant, right? Very similar to this. Chadi Boga Ahi, same thing. That's what they did. In order to deliver the poor conditioned souls, they accepted loincloths, treating themselves as mendicants. But this is the point, right? Look at this. Just making connections here. Radha Dasya, Radha Dasyam. Look at this. But they are always merged in the ecstatic ocean of the gopis' love for Krishna and bathe always and repeatedly in the waves of that ocean. Right? These are our Goswamis. That's what they do. And I would like to turn your attention to this particular line in Srila Prabhupada's books. Okay, there's one line I'm going to show you in the preface. The first line, this one line, the Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the direct supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. My Guru Maharaj gave a 6 series seminar on this one line of the preface of Nectar of Instruction. How the Krishna conscious movement is conducted under the direct supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. One line, can you imagine? One line. But he gave a 6 series talk on this Nectar of Instruction series. I could post it in the chat if I forget, please remind me. But he gave a 6 series talk upon this. And in this talk, Maharaj is making the point how Rupa Goswami is a person, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Swapatantikam. We offer respectful obeisance unto Rupa Goswami. Why? For what reason? We offer respectful obeisances unto him because he came to establish the Manobhishta of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the one who's teaching, he's a resident of Raja, who's teaching us how we can actually go to the spiritual world, how we can actually serve the devotees in the spiritual world, how we could become a servant of Srimati Radharani. Right? He's teaching us all these points. He's teaching us these things. So if we were to follow in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami, if we were to follow in the footsteps of the devotees, then we'll understand. But the whole point is Pratishtha nahi kirtana gaurava. That we must not perform kirtan for the sake of self-aggrandizement. Pratishtha nahi kirtana gaurava. The whole purpose of kirtan is not to promote ourselves, but it's to promote Krishna. That's the whole point. You see, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur goes on to say, Radha Nitya Jan Taha Chadi Man. Kenava nirjana bhajana kaita. Why are you forgetting this important point that our acharyas are all Radha Nityajan, right? The glory of participating in the Lord's Kirtan is not meant to bolster one's ambitions for personal recognition or mine. Why then have you abandoned the identity of being Radha's eternal servant in favor of retiring? Why? Why are we abandoning Radha Nitya? Why are we abandoning service to Srimati Radharani, Radha Nitya Jan? Why are we abandoning service to her? Instead, we are going to sensual kirtans, listening to these kirtaniyas who do not follow the four regulative principles, who are not serious about Krishna consciousness. They just have a nice voice. And to have a nice voice isn't the qualification to go back home, back to Godhead. To have a nice voice isn't the qualification to go back home, back to Godhead. The qualification to go back home, back to Godhead is to be Radha Nityajan, which means what? Which means we must give our entire life and soul to Krishna. Srimati Radharani is the head of the service department. We must give our life to her service under the directions of the previous acharyas. But if you're not doing this, we're simply wasting our human form of life. We're wasting it. We're wasting it. How unfortunate. We've come so close to Krishna consciousness. Some come so close, but for the sake of some useless material sense gratification, we are wasting our life away in all this other garbage, hodgepodge nonsense, not practicing Krishna consciousness. No matter what kind of situation we are in, right? This is like a famously quoted verse, and Prabhupada would quote this often, and I'm his grandson. I can proudly say that. So this verse. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradip tivrena bhakti yogina yajita purusham param. Prabhupada would quote this verse so often. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desires, full of all material desires, without any material desires, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Holy Personality of Godhead. Right? And over here, if you look at this, is tivrena bhakti yogina. If you have material desires, if you're full of material desires, you have no material desires, if you're a moksha kami, whatever you may be, you must perform intense devotional service. Intensity in the performance of devotional service is not an option. If we are able to give our entire life to performing intense devotional service, then no matter where we are in our life, if we are just trying to make it somehow or the other, or if we seriously want to go back home, back to Godhead, we have to endeavor very seriously in Krishna consciousness. Only if we endeavor in Tivra Bhakti can we give up our attachments. If we don't endeavor in Tivra Bhakti, we will never give up our attachments that we have. Our attachments which are so dear to us, which have kept us in this material world since time immemorial. Prabhupada was once asked, how long does it take to perfect one's chanting? Prabhupada said 40 years. It'll take you 40 years to perfect your chanting. And one may think, oh my God, that's a long time. But actually, in the scale of eternity, that is nothing. You give your one life and you give it all you got. Engage in Tivra Bhakti. Wake up before 4 a.m. Attend Mangal Arati. Chant 16 attentive rounds. Read Prabhupada's books. Do all these things. And if you do it, then certainly you can attain Radha Bhakti. You can be a servant to Srimati Radharani. You can. But provided you have to follow the path laid down by the six Goswamis. Provided we follow the path laid down by Srila Prabhupada and his teachings. If we follow his instructions, we will surely attain Vraja Prema. We will attain all the things which we actually need in order to be successful in our life. But if we do a little Krishna consciousness and a little sense gratification, a little Krishna consciousness and a little sense gratification, we will always be stuck in this material world. And it's not so much fun. It's not so much fun to be stuck in the material world. We must not wait for everything in the world to go to hell to start to take the Krishna consciousness seriously. My mom called me up, pious Hindu lady, and she was like, "Oh, it's Dhanur Masam. What are you doing? Are you doing?" I said, "Yeah, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm distributing books and chanting Hare Krishna." She said, "You do that eternally, right?" I said, "Yeah, I do that eternally." But then, and then I told her, "Look, and let me explain to you." I said, "We are regular customers. If there is a discount, a big deal, no big deal, whatever, we always go shopping." That's our bhav. Whether it's, Kartika Mas or it's this or it's Ekadashi, we are always performing devotional service. So if we are always performing devotional service, then no matter what, we're always there. We are always there. We perform this devotional service, and the time that the great deals they'll take good use of it. But for us, our seriousness of surrendering to Krishna, our sobriety in surrendering to Krishna should not change. It should never change our sobriety. How sober we should be in surrendering to Krishna. How serious we should be in going back home, back to Godhead. We really need to take to this very, very seriously. We need to give up this enjoying mentality. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in another place, he says, now listen to this. This is really heavy. He says, Aham mama bhava satve anartuto chadina bhoga buddhi na chadile nama prakrita hoina. Okay, I think I messed up the last line. Let me see if I could find this verse. Aham mama bhava. Is it? Um, I think I found it. One second. This is from another bhajan that he wrote. Okay. Prakrita Rashashata Dushini. Oops, looks like they don't have it. Must be somewhere. Oops, they're trying to sell us the book, guys. Trying to do my service to me. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, there it is. Wow. Look at that. Aham mama bhava satve namaka buhaina bhoga buddhi na charile aprakrita haina. The holy name is never revealed to one who is situated in the bodily concept of life, thinking in terms of I and mine. If one doesn't reject the enjoying mentality, the transcendental platform will never be attained. Right? If we have this enjoying mentality, how will we ever give a, how will we ever chant the holy name properly? How long will we think that this material world is meant for our enjoyment? How long? We'll always be stuck here, in this material world. Right? We'll always be stuck here. We'll always think it's meant for our enjoyment, but it's not meant for our enjoyment. We must learn to give up this enjoying mentality. And unless we give this up, this enjoying mentality up, it's going to be very hard for us. It's going to be very hard. And then nowadays you have people who like become a manjari overnight, programs and like, how you can be a very elevated devotee while at the same time having all your material desires. And they write like 100 ways to cheat yourself into Raganuga Bhakti or some stupid nonsense like that. But if we don't follow the process given to us by the six Goswamis, if we don't follow the process given to us by Srila Prabhupada, who's a representative of the six Goswamis, how will we ever have hope of transcending our material nature, giving up material attachments, developing attachment to the lotus feet of Krishna to such a degree that we cannot but think of Krishna, and then go back home, back to Godhead? How will we ever attain that? Right? That is why we must understand this whole Krishna consciousness movement is Radharani's movement. This is her movement. Understand this. Why? Because you see, if you go to Vrindavan, what do people say? They say Radhe Radhe. But what do we say? We say Hare Krishna. So I have so many people, they're going by, they look at Srila Prabhupada and say Radhe Radhe. And what does Prabhupada say? Hare Krishna. Why does Prabhupada say Hare Krishna? Because he always wants to have Radha and Krishna together. Why does he say Hare Krishna? Because the Krishna consciousness movement is Radharani's movement. Who do we glorify? Krishna. What's the movement called? Krishna consciousness movement. What is the prasadam called? Krishna prasadam. Everything we're doing is meant to serve Krishna. You see? And who is the best servant of Krishna? Radharani. And this is her movement. Therefore, if we give our life to this movement, we will get so much mercy from the Supreme Personality of Godhead's most dear beloved Srimati Radharani. Once a person, very influential person, was doing Dandavat Parikrama around Radhakund during Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time. The disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they went up to him and told him, you see, Prabhupada, this person, such a big, elevated guy, he's doing Dandavat Parikrama of Radhakund. It's very nice. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sai Thakur said, I'm not so impressed. They asked him, why Guru Maharaj is such, the reason I'm not so impressed is because he is worshipping Radha Kund and Radharani because he thinks Radharani is worthy of our worship because she has something to do with Krishna. But we worship Krishna because he has something to do with Srimati Radharani. If he didn't have something to do with Srimati Radharani, we would not worship him. So this is our mood, actually. It's our mood. This is the mood of our entire parampara. That we are, what does Bhaktivinoda Thakur say? He says, Amito, Amito Radha Sada Paki Sada. That I am always on Srimati Radharani's side. Always. That is our line. That's our line. We need to understand these points very seriously, very diligently. Understand these points. And yes, here we are in the material world. How do we pray? How do we pray? Okay, because I love all of you. I'm going to share with you uh, a verse which I often pray, especially when I realize, dude, I'm a conditioned soul. It is one of my favorite verses, and it's not Ananya Shintayantamam. That's also one of my favorite verses, Ben. Who looks like a Amito Radhika Paka. I think that's a spelling mistake there. Paksapati.
Pakshapati.
Pakshapati. Okay, Pakopati Shada. Okay, all right, fine. Yeah. She's translating things for Guru Maharaj, so she could do that. So we say, yeah. So we say, okay, so now I'll share with you. This is my and this is the probably the most realistic situation for all of us. At least for me. Maybe some of you are like Paramahamsas, I don't know. But this verse, Andasya me hita viveka mahadanasya, choresh prabhu balibir indriya nama dyayehi. Mohan the Kupa Kuhate Vinipatitasha Devesha Dehi Kripanasya Karavalambam. Right? Let me pull it up, Sri Vallabhiti. Andasya me hita viveka mahadanasya chore prabhu balibir indriya namadhyayehi mohan the kupa kuhare vinipatitasya devesha dehi kripanasya karavalambam. Okay, it's very beautiful verse. It's very ecstatic verse. This is my situation for sure. And what's the translation? So we see, okay. Oh Lord, the powerful senses, the powerful thieves of my senses have blinded me by stealing my most precious possession, my discrimination. And they have thrown me deep into the pitch dark well of delusion. Please, O Lord of Lords, extend your hand and save this wretched soul. It's such a beautiful verse, right? Andasya me hrita viveka mahadanasya. Chorai prabho balibirindriya namadhyayahi. Mohan kupa kuhare vinipatitasya devesha dehi. Kripanasya karavalambam. This is our situation. That we're completely stuck with sense gratification, all these things, right? And the thieves of our senses, they have stolen our sense of discrimination. They're so strong. And we've fallen into this endless dark world of material existence. But somehow or the other, we are praying the Supreme Lord extends his merciful hand towards us and lifts us out of this world of suffering. And unless we realize our situation, then we'll never be, especially when we're out distributing books. Like, dude, this marathon was the toughest marathon I've ever worked in my entire life. It was so crazy. The weather, a truck broke down twice, almost died 4 times. It was really, it was really crazy. It was so crazy. I mean, this trip, I realized, driving so much on the highways is like a pretty risky thing, but shoo, somehow, every time Krishna saved us, every single time. The worst thing was, we just got off the highway, we got to a Sankirtan spot. Right when we were about to get there, our brakes failed. And we thinking, what the heck happened? We just took it to a mechanic twice. What's going on? So many things went wrong, but somehow the other, especially when I was in a situation like this, I was praying, Andar Shame Hita Viveka Mahadanasya, Shore Prabhu Bali Birindi Anamadiya Yehi, Mohan the Kupa Kuhare Vinipatitasya, Devesh Dehi Kripanasya Karavalambam. The Supreme Lord really extended his hand. Somehow or the other protected us, protected our book distribution. We still distributed 502 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. That was fired up, but it was so hard. It was so rough. But just depending upon Krishna, depending upon the extent Krishna, because when you stick your neck out for Krishna, you really learn to depend upon Krishna. It's not a joke, actually. It's not a joke. We somehow the other, Krishna protected us. So many things could have gone wrong, could have gone more wrong than they already did, but it worked out. It worked out. Why? Because we are, part of we're part of Srila Prabhupada's movement, and Prabhupada's movement is part of the Rupa Goswami's movement, and this Radharani's movement. So Krishna takes personal charge. Prabhupada says that when devotees go in the front lines, and those who are going in the front lines, they're given special protection, just like the soldiers who are fighting on the front lines. They're given the best facilities, best everything in order to win the war. So similarly, this we had that experience. Somehow or the other, we got the mercy. Somehow Krishna blessed us. But it was, anyway, everything was on the line. But we need to understand all these points. We need to understand how we need to be a servant of the Supreme Lord. That's why the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Siddhanta Balya Chite Nakaroha Alas Iya Haite Krishna Lagi Sudhi Damanash. That one must not be lazy in understanding Siddhanta. One must not be lazy in understanding Siddhanta. And not being lazy, we must discuss controversial points. For example, speaking about all those bogus kirtan rascals which goes on everywhere, even within ISKCON. You can have like all these people who are not really serious about Krishna consciousness at all. You may have one or two exceptions like Mukunda Datta Prabhu who goes there to purify the whole place, and whoever else who are practicing seriously. But majority of the so-called kirtanias, they don't chant their rounds. They eat karmic grains. We've seen them eat karmic grains so many times. We know they don't chant. We actually know some of the people related to these, literally bodily, biological relations to these people. They don't chant 16 rounds. They're not serious about Krishna consciousness at all. So why should we hear from these rascals? We should not hear from these rascals. And then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I guess paraphrasing the Siddhanta Balechite Nakaro Alas verse, he says something even more heavy. He says, Siddhanta Alasajan Anarthuto Chadena Krishna Prema Rangi, what is that? What's the next line? He says, um, okay, I think I can. Siddhanta Alasajan Anarthuto Chadena. A person who is lazy in understanding Siddhanta can never give up. He can never give up. Yeah, this is it. Siddhanta Alasajan Anartha Tota Chadena. Jade Krishna Brahma Kori Krishna Seva Korina. One who is lazy in properly understanding the Vaishnava philosophical conclusions can never become free from anarthas. Did you hear that? I'm going to read it again. One who is lazy in properly understanding the Vaishnava philosophical conclusions can never become free from anarthas. The unwanted bad habits and philosophical misconceptions impede devotional service. One who mistakes Krishna as belonging to the material plane can never render actual service to the Lord. Then look at this. What else does he say? Anartha na gele nama guna bhuja jayana. Anartha na gele nama drishna seva haina. As long as anarthas remain, then the chanting of the holy name will never produce an understanding of transcendental qualities of the Lord. As long as anarthas remain, the chanting of the holy name will never factually engage one in Krishna's service. Heavy, 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 heavy. That's Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur for you. Heavy, so heavy. Right? But we need to learn to understand the Siddhanta properly. And why do we need to understand the Siddhanta properly? Because when we do understand the Siddhanta properly, we can actually chant the holy name properly. Bhakti Siddhanta Viruddha Ar Rasabas, Srinilena Hai Prabhu Chittira Ulas. That Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was never pleased listening to any statement against Bhakti Siddhanta or the proper conclusion. We should also be like that. Should never be pleased when we listen to statements which are opposing Bhakti Siddhanta. Never. We should have firm fidelity to the Siddhanta, actually. So we understand these points. And I was listening to Mukund Datta Prabhu was actually in Christian life, and he made this amazing statement where he said that according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the worst offense in all the offenses that we could commit towards the holy name is Shruti Shastra Nindanam. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and pursuers of the Vedic version. And as far as we are concerned, whatever knowledge we have of Shruti, Shastra, and all that is coming from Srila Prabhupada's books. So if we neglect reading Srila Prabhupada's books, there can be no one more unfortunate than us, actually. We have everything. We have the opportunity of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have all the right directions which are needed for us to make our life perfect and do everything possible to attain Krishna Prema, attain Radha Dasyam, to become a Radha Nityajan, but we instead choose not to do it. Who can be more unfortunate than us? Who can be more unfortunate? That's why the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse. Let me see if I can pull it up. Oops. Uh, yeah, clearly I missed. Okay, let me try again. Oh, Krishna. You look at this. Okay. Materialists are generally very attached to their present material bodily comforts and to the bodily comforts they expect in the future. That therefore they're always absorbed in thoughts of their wife, children, and wealth, and are afraid of giving up their bodies, which are full of stool and urine. But this is the point. Now look at this. If a person engaged in Krishna consciousness, however, is also afraid of giving up his body, what is the use of his having labored to study the Shastra? It was simply a waste of time, right? Then Prabhupada goes on to say in this purport, mm, yeah, okay, there you go. A person in Krishna consciousness must fully discharge his devotional service duties without material attachment. Then his liberation is guaranteed. So you can see there can be no one more unfortunate than us who have Prabhupada's books, who have the instructions of the previous acharyas, and we still don't want to actually take to the process given to us then. If we have Srila Prabhupada's books and we're not reading them, shame on us. Seriously, shame on us. If we are initiated for a few years, we've been practicing Krishna consciousness, let's just say even for 4 years, and we still haven't read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, shame on us. We need to really get our act together and read Srila Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada labored so hard to write these books. Can't we read them? If you've been practicing Krishna consciousness for 8 to 10 years and you haven't read all of Srila Prabhupada's books, you're doing something really wrong. You have a messed up, skewed up conception of Krishna consciousness. We have to get the right understanding. We have to understand these points. May seem unpalatable, but when you start to read Srila Prabhupada's books, you'll realize, wow, this is the highest nectar, actually. So, if you're not reading Srila Prabhupada's books every day, please do so. Even during the marathon, I made sure I read Srila Prabhupada's book. It was so intense. Still, every day, no matter what, I read Srila Prabhupada's books. It was really amazing. But we strongly request all devotees, please take to this human form of life very seriously. Labdvasha durlabham idam bahusam bhavante manushyam artadam anityam api hadira turnam yatedana patet anumrityu yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took a vow that he would preach the import of this verse every day until the day that he disappeared from this world. And wherever he lived, he would have this verse be put up in the room that he's staying. This one, I just quoted it. Uh, Oops, what's going on here? Okay. After many, many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus, a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for a human being. So understand this. It's a very serious thing. Don't listen to the TV. Don't listen to the acharyas. Turnam yatet anapatet anumrityu. Understand this point. It's so rare. It's so rare to attain the human form of life. But even more rare than that is to have a bona fide spiritual master. So if you have a bona fide spiritual master, or you're aspiring from a bona fide spiritual master, then make the best use of this opportunity. It's so rare to find this. So I'll end the class over here. If there's any questions, comments, protests, we could take them now. Does anyone have anything? If you do, please kindly unmute your microphone. Anybody? Yes, no? Okay, all right. If nobody has anything they'd like to say, we could end the class over here. And tomorrow, what time is the class? What time does Vishnu Prabhu usually have his class? Is it at 8 o'clock? What time is it?
8.
8 o'clock. So tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we could have the class again, and I'll speak on the last two verses of Dushtaman. And then starting again, we get back to our Bhagavad Gita. This was a long, long, long session. Yeah, 19 verses is a lot. But yeah, I'll make sure to cover both the verses tomorrow. And then with that, we can conclude our Dushtaman seminar, and then we could get back into Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay. So thank you all for attending. I'm very happy to be with all of you again. It's a mercy of Krishna. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha. Paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo.